Hello, everybody. Welcome. You want to laugh? Just go
Good to
ahead and
see you
laugh.
all. Yeah, I'm learning to be more professional. Hello, everybody. Good evening.
I don't think we're going for professional.
Oh, fuck. I can't win on this shit. Good evening, everybody.
So we are talking past lives tonight, or there's a fancy title that he creates the fancy titles, and I create the plain ones just where people will know what we're talking about. So it's about like many souls, many human experiences, or the soul's many human experiences. And we are super excited. We're super excited. We do have two different guests that are joining us tonight to talk about their separate expertises and knowledge on the topic. And then, we just want to like chat with you guys about why this topic and what brought us to this topic. And we even are bringing in Solange, who usually stays backstage, so that she could just share her past life regression experience. So do you want to tell them how we got excited about this, like somewhat together, I guess, or re-excited? What is that?
Re-excited? Is that a thing? Okay. So Ashley and I took I think that was like one of the most beautiful trips of my life experience so far. We took a trip first out to Sedona, and then we went back to see Abraham Hicks when Abraham Hicks was around. This is what, 2 years ago, Ash?
Yes.
And we took a trip, and as we were driving up to Sedona, it was like this crazy beautiful weather. Like it was all rainy and crazy, and it was like all this like beautiful like clouds and colors, and I was like tripping the fuck out. And we were listening to Journey of Souls on an audiobook. Ashley had read that, was very inspired by that book. My ex-fiance had actually left that on my doorstep many years ago. Again, everyone trying to introduce me to spirituality, and me not being ready to hear it. And we listened to it together, and it was mind-blowing. And Journey of Souls, I know Ashley wants to go over. I have Cliff Notes in my lap. It totally reinvented my concept of the whole one life concept, and it started to make sense. It started to make sense for a lot of deja vu I'd experienced, and I've experienced so much more deja vu, and really understanding that, like, perhaps, I don't want to push it in case anyone else has other spiritual beliefs. I want to value other people's beliefs as well. But in my belief, we come here many, many times, and this is a classroom, and we're here. Yeah. And the book talks about, like, we agree or we choose certain bodies or certain experiences to become, more intelligent, more knowing, more loving energy. And it just absolutely blew my mind. So how did you feel about that experience and that book in general?
Yeah, I think that book was one that sometimes you have to hear a book name a few times and then you're like, okay, like I'll read it already. Same with like, I feel like there's a similar book that Solange will bring in that she's the second one that said the name in a matter of a week. So I'm like, I guess I'm reading that book next. But I think that I always like had that kind of knowing, I feel like with a lot of spiritual information, it just lands as true. And that's what I always notice, is that maybe I don't intellectually understand something, but I hear it and I'm just like, yes, like my body knows that, my being knows that that's true, but it's like I can't explain it. But of course, like I was just so curious to study it, to learn more. So I think it was so interesting, just the lives between lives part. So beyond the concept of like, yes, we're reincarnating. And the piece that I just randomly turned on the book, and it was talking about like what happens before you go into another life experience. And it's basically like, like you do have a lot of different paths, right? And it was talking about how we just get these intuitive nudges or have these kind of signs or signals, and we study it. They describe it, and the people that are going through all this, like, I guess it's like a hypnosis in this book. He's like a doctor performing these past life regression hypnosis types things. And everyone's explaining pretty much the same kinds of things in different words, and these people don't know each other. And I just thought some of these things around, like, it talks about, it's so confusing on Earth, like what we're supposed to do when we meet people, and sex just makes it so confusing. And I just was like, laughing. I think it's like just fascinating that it talks about that. It's almost like we study these like signs or these little things that are going to make us feel a certain way, that are going to trigger something in us that changes our path or sort of nudges us into the kind of major events that we decided upon before we got here, in terms of like who's going to be our major relationships and how we're appearing in that life. Because that's sort of what you're saying, right? About the soul cluster, that we end up really reincarnating and playing out these roles in different people's lives many different times, many different ways. And you and I have that knowing for a few reasons, that we are always reoccurring characters in each other's life.
It's because you're obsessed with me and you won't leave me alone. No, I absolutely, on a for realsy note, like absolutely. I mean, but I like what you're saying about the in between lives, and I feel that to my core. About being released from body, and it totally changed. The whole understanding of past lives, reincarnation changed my relationship with death, because I believe in that. Me being in recovery, death is a reoccurring topic almost, monthly, if not weekly in my life. I mean, not necessarily like my best friends, but people I've known and loved, unfortunately, this disease. And to make peace with that, to understand they are released, they're free flowing energy, they're back with their soul clusters, they're back with Source/God. They're, roaming around, and then they're going to choose to come back to Earth and either really, in my belief, when it comes to addiction, relearn the lesson, learn to come to peace with it, or move on to another form to learn another lesson. It's brought a lot of peace to my life. Having a near-death experience myself, it makes so much sense. It took the fright out of it, and it took more of the wonderment in life. I have more of a wonderment of life with that understanding. I don't need to get it all done now. Like Abraham Hicks always talks about, you're never going to get it all done. I'm meant to do this life experience divinely and fantastically, and I'll be back to do some more. And so I love that in between lives aspect of the book, and just the whole thought of reincarnation. So it brings me a lot of peace, honestly. And I'm so excited for the women that are going to be joining us, and Solange and her experience. I want to hear more about that. So I'm excited for today.
Yeah, I want to bring in Solange just to share her few minutes of her past life regression. But yeah, I think it does bring me peace, because, and even had that reminder today that sometimes we're trying to control everything. And we're like, I have to figure out how to have this. And it was talking about how, no, if you actually just follow your kind of inclinations and the things that you're pulled towards, it's going to unfold. And if it unfolds some other way, then that's also, there's going to be some lessons there as well. And I think it just kind of brings me back to knowing that. Solange, I'm going to pull you in right now, just so you're not surprised. You're not caught off guard, okay?
She's going to be topless over there. Like she's good. She's ready to go.
Solange, stop.
Are you ready, Solange?
I'm here.
You guys make me crack up so hard. Okay, so Solange is usually backstage. Solange, she helps me on a lot of my lives. She works with me in sort of the background a lot. And so people usually don't see her. Sometimes they hear your voice on the other lives, but this is Solange. She's amazing. And when we found out last week that she's had a past life regression experience, and we're like, will you talk about it? Will you just share? So what was significant, or what were some standout things that you noticed in your experience? I'm so curious.
Okay, so I had two experiences, two different ones. One was because of phobia that I was having. I had a really bad phobia. I still have it because I discovered in that life, when I was doing the hypnosis, that I was already scared of frogs. And it was really, really scary. And I cried a lot in this experience, because you are sleepy, but it's a weird state, you're in a hypnosis. You can move, you can feel everything what's going on, but at the same time you're with your eyes closed, and you feel everything, and you see everything in a movie. like from inside your body. It's really weird, but it's a really good experience. And in that life that I went, it was like in a village, and I was seeing my mother dying in a house, in a burnt house. Like the house was burning so bad, and that day was already like was raining, and it was full of frogs. And I was like seeing my house in that life, burning to the ground, and my mother was there. So the therapist told me that maybe it's that I was like trapped there. I was already fear of frogs, and I couldn't like do anything for my mom, and it was like full of frogs in between me, and it was raining so bad. And it's something that I was already scared in that life, because I was really scared of frogs in that time, in that life. But also I still have this phobia. But the thing is that I could understand something at least. And they say something.
Tell me, understanding it or knowing it, like what's important about that, or did it shift anything for you because you saw that?
Yeah, every time that I see a frog now, I think about that. But I think I don't know, maybe I have to do some more work on this, because it's not only one experience, it's not only that you can like do it. Maybe it's something more, something deeper that even I don't know, still. So I should keep working on this, but maybe I wasn't like, I don't know. I'm still like a kind of scared or something to go deeper, maybe. I feel like it wasn't the time. I don't know.
But I think it would only be revealed if it was. That's at least my understanding. I'll be curious when we pull in Heather for a few minutes. I think that we're only shown like what we're meant to hear at that specific time. So yeah, like I don't know that it would have been brought through or like remembered if you weren't supposed to know, but that is curious. And I think it's curious that you're like having that realization right now, and it's actually coming back into your memory now. So it makes me wonder like, maybe you should follow that nudge. Maybe there is more. Before we bring in Heather, James, is there anything else that you were curious about with Solange's experience?
Well, Solange, you have been intrigued by reincarnation for quite some time, yeah? Like you were sharing earlier that like since your teens, right? So is there anything else that really brings us about that sense of like, because a frog, it sounds like is like almost symbolism for, witnessing your mom's passing. Is there anything else that's kind of deja vu-ish, or like what is, because I have many things where I'm like, what the fuck am I tripping out on that about? Or like, I feel like I lived this life before. Does that make sense? Where like, I've been here before. What's happening right now? Have you had any more of those moments that really just trip you out?
No, I haven't like feel something like I've been here before, like something of deja vu, yes, but not with frogs. I have these experiences sometimes, but not really often. But also, yes, I was interested in this topic for so long, and I've been researching a lot. And the first book that I read is Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. And it blew my mind, because I was like 13 or 14 when I first read this book. I read it twice, actually. I think I'm gonna go for the third one because it's so good. It's so good. And from the first time that I read it, I was like, okay, I need to know more about this. And I felt something, as Ashley was saying, like something in my body, So I've never felt these kind of things with frogs. It's just that I'm so fucking scared when I see one. I know. I totally know they are doing nothing to me, because they are also scared of me, probably. It's something that I can't control. I start sweating. I sometimes I cry when I see one.
From a frog?
Yeah.
So is it only okay? I gotta ask this. So is it only like the actual physical frog, or is it like imagery of frogs?
Images as well.
Images of frogs too.
Yes.
Damn, girl, you got out for frogs.
It's so bad. Yeah, my hands are sweating right now.
Oh, thinking of frogs.
Okay, James, you need. We're gonna stop.
Well, before we let Solange go,
Yeah, it's so
Solange,
bad. Still.
Solange, can we talk about the little bit of information that Ashley told me to shush about? But I'm so excited for you. For those of you that
Yes.
have gotten to know Solange, go ahead.
Go. You go.
Solange is expecting baby, right? When's your due date?
It's 7th of May.
Okay,
Next
that's
year, of
beautiful.
course,
I'm so
right?
excited for you. And
James was
I'm
just
sorry.
trying to out her pregnancy information, and I was trying to tell him that is not how it works. You don't just go live and talk about someone's new pregnancy. But Solange,
Solange said I could. So now what?
I think he's more excited than me.
I usually am more excited than the women in my life with their pregnancies.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Solange. We just wanted to give you guys. We found out, we didn't even know that she had experienced a past life regression before. So we're like, just come on and talk about it. Will you tell everything, and will you announce your pregnancy? And she promised us we could do a gender reveal live, you guys. So we'll keep you posted on all of the updates for Solange's pregnancy.
We're not going to burn down any forests with her gender reveal, though. We're going to keep it quaint, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So I wanted to pull in Heather Carlucci, and so she's a medical intuitive. She is a psychic medium. She's actually done a number of different readings for me. She's amazing. And one of them, we actually did go into past lives. And so that's why I wanted to invite her, because I think that she always has a really kind of interesting perspective, like I think a unique perspective, but it always just makes sense to me. So Heather, I'm going to pull you in now. And if you guys have questions, by the way, just start dropping them in the comments. We can pull in questions for Heather. Hi.
Hi.
Heather.
Hi, James. Nice to meet you. It's always good to see you, Ashley.
You too. So will you tell people how the past lives fit into the work that you do? Because I want it to come from you. You're going to explain it better than I will.
Well, when I read, a lot of things come up in general, just to give an overall, right? So of the 8 clair senses, I have all 8. So things do come in at quite a clip during a reading. And then, of course, I'm a medical intuitive. But I would say past lives, when I'm reading, come in, as you know, when I read, everything sort of is linked to each other, right? It's all about the connectivity. And I find that as I'm reading someone, I will very specifically hear and see, this is why. And the why is the past life experience, or one of many past lives, because we all have, upward, it could be 1,000 past lives, because we have to remember that lives very often last a minute or a week or 90 years. And we don't know, we don't know what those experiences always are. So for me, it's always when I'm in it and I'm given an opportunity to sort of say, well, now that we've been talking about why this is going on in your life, or why I see it, or why I told you about something you already knew, right, to be true, which is a good part of a psychic reading.
Right.
This can give you an explanation about why it's happening. Right?
So Heather,
connectivity.
Can I ask you a question before we dive into this topic? Just because we have a lot of people that are a part of like the roundtable that are really just starting to explore their gifts. How was it for you when you were first becoming aware of these gifts? If you just like real quick, like that experience of growing into this beautiful gift that you have.
Why, thank you for calling it that, first of all. Not everybody feels that way.
I absolutely do.
I always, when people always ask me, like, when did you know? I always say, when I realized other people didn't. Or other people were not as in tune, because I believe we all have a certain level of it. It's actually it's a good part of human survival that we have intuition and we can read into things. But we are not in this time in our lives, and for many years, of maybe a few thousand, ever raised in an area in which they say, let's wait to see what your strengths are, and then that's the job you get. We're always geared towards a certain way, to behave a certain way, and it cuts off of our intuition. It's don't listen to your gut, listen to me. That's how we raise children. And to some extent, we have to do that, right?
Yeah.
We have to do that to some extent. And it's interesting. This topic always comes up, and it always leads into things. And interesting, you mentioned, James, that you're in recovery. And when it's interesting to me, the past life things that go on to bring us into a life that is present. And the minute I know what the past life is, I'm like, oh, there is addiction that is coming through for that person. It always comes through in that connectivity because the energy is so specific.
Okay.
I want to ask you, Heather. I want to ask you.
Actually, but to James, I've known that I've had this my whole life. Just to answer, I didn't realize I really didn't answer your question. I kind of went around.
I love your
perfect.
answer. You always have a way of saying things very uniquely in a way that I haven't heard it, and it gives me a new understanding. So that is one of your gifts that not everyone has as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You made my day.
And it is a gift, Heather.
Yes, I realize that. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but yeah, usually yes, I do feel that way myself.
So I think it kind of confused me and blew my mind at the same time when people explained, or someone explained, that things are kind of happening at the same time, that it's like really our human understanding of time and the concept of time, that sometimes things are going on simultaneously. And I just wanted to hear your perspective on that.
Well, it's interesting because somebody asked me, one of my students, I teach this work, and one of my students asked me recently, like they talked about deja vu, right? And she's like, but there seems to be two kinds of deja vu, which I thought was a really, really great way of explaining it. She said, well, there are moments when you're, when you're like talking to somebody and you're like, oh, we totally had this conversation before, right? We always have those. And then there's I was on vacation and I was walking down the street in the city I'd never been to before. And I knew I had been there, right? I knew where I was going. It felt familiar. I felt that I had come home. And yet maybe you were not even in a place that spoke your language, which are two very different experiences of time, right? One is 100% past life, the walking down the street, right? And being someplace and being like, I know I have been here before, and it's more obvious in places that are very old. We usually don't have that moment in like Mall of America, but we do have it like, say, you get to go to Europe and you walk down an old street, or even somewhere colonial. Like we feel that, or even walking through the woods somewhere, and one woods could look no different than any other, but you have been there, right? It's very past life driven. The other one, which is what you brought up, in the way I read it, and we could have 25 psychic mediums here, and we'll have very different explanations for certain details of past lives, but it's just how I do it. It most definitely is almost like a folding of time. For me, when I read and somebody has that sort of moment of, I know we've had this conversation before, I did this, I did that, and I know I've seen it before. It is that everything's happening, and that because the dimensions of who we are, and as you know, Ashley, I'm very much grounded in science. Like I don't have a religious background. I believe everything I do is scientific. We don't just know the links yet altogether. Mm-hmm. We don't allow ourselves to learn the links yet, usually. But it really does have to every dimension is right next to each other. So even when people are like, you mean, is there a spirit with me now? I'm like, there's never not spirits around people. Like the room is always crowded, right? So when we have those moments, it is sort of a folding of time. There's something else going on at the same time at all times. And it's in angles, and there are fractals and reflections and all those things. And so we get a glimpse of it in that moment. That makes sense.
That just,
I'm just like,
it totally clarifies. It totally clarified for me, Heather. I actually was having an experience where I was at a viewing for a friend that had passed away, and I remember I was trying to console the person next to me, and it was almost like the words I was saying in that very moment. I've said this before, and I've been in this exact experience before, and I get that that's probably parallel. Like its dimensions are very similar to one another simultaneously, I guess, because it felt like I knew the words I was going to say them. I had said them before, so thank you for the clarity on that. Kind of just
and also
blew my mind a little bit.
I'm sorry, there's a little bit of lag. I'm trying to dance around it a little bit. Also, when we're in the presence, when somebody passes, it's not just that it's an emotional moment for you, because we know the obvious pen on paper description of loss, right? And we're sad, right? And we're kind of only given that. We're not even given room for grief in the way we should, because there's no law with grief, right? None. Mm-hmm. But when we're around this moment of somebody passing, it means the energy in your life shifted. It's literally energy moving. And all that entails. And because we are all literally made up of the same damn DNA, it shifts everybody.
Wow.
Yeah. Trip out on that.
I am literally tripping out in my head right now. So thank you for that.
Anytime, really.
You're one of the guests that I just kind of get hypnotized by listening to, that I forget I'm supposed to interact. So sorry, but you're like blowing me away right now.
I take that as a compliment.
It is.
So Heather, I think that what I'm hearing is that you don't necessarily like say, I'm going to do a past life reading, but you kind of dive into the person. I know readings with you will kind of like start with the body and sort of the medical side of it. And like, I remember a time where I started to ask certain questions, or times where you would just bring in the information about, well, there's this, and this is linked to a past life. And this is the things that you said and decided upon when you wanted to come into this life. You had, these specific requests this time. And so I remember it kind of flowing in. Like, I don't know that I went to you specifically for it, but I just am, I think that there are going to be people that are going to hear this, that are going to be curious, or they're going to want to know how it works. So for you, it kind of flows in. It sounds like you don't necessarily just do what you would call like past life only kind of reading.
Well, what I think is important in reading, when I do my readings, for whatever reason, I was given the opportunity to do readings this way. If you're going to be doing a past life regression or past life anything, and people can say, can you read some past lives for me in the middle of a reading? I'm like, sure. Because when I'm in, when the reading starts, there's nothing else going on. It's just me. And I can ask for it and it will be given to me. The thing is about past lives, it's when you want to learn about that. And when I was listening to Solange earlier, she went into it because she realized there was something in her life that really, like, you could walk. Some people are like, I'm afraid of frogs. I don't care. I live in the middle of New York City. I'll never see a frog. It doesn't matter to me. I can go about my life. But Solange was like, I want to take care of this. It bothers me. I don't want to have to live with this anymore, right? When it comes up in a reading without me asking for it, as I was saying earlier, it's because we can have this information and either like get it off our shoulders, because we are constantly, how civilization has gone is that perfection is this driven thing. It's one of the reasons why I always have an issue with the wellness industry and most people that are in it, because it's this goal, it's this perfection. And we're messy beings, we're animals. And we need to be kind, but we don't need to be perfect.
Yeah.
We're always uncomfortable. Who would be uncomfortable with the way they look, right? But yet it's all we think about. Any of us think about on somebody else, on us, on something, right? Look how we dress, blah, blah, blah. So when somebody is sort of looking at that, it comes in because it's meant to help. It's meant to sort of say, so it's like, I have such a problem with my son, right? I get that a lot. We don't get along. and inevitably 2 things will come up if one of them is past life. First thing I say is, what trauma happened to you when you were the age your son is now? Right? Because psychologically, we all react when our child becomes the age in which we've been through trauma. Fascinating, right? All parents have to know that. That's the first thing. The second thing I say is always, let me see what's going on past life-wise. And I'm like, you know what? He was your mother. No wonder you got a problem. Or something like that. Or you guys were at battle. I could see it. This is where you were. You were a man. He was a man. You were soldiers. This is what happened. There are a million things that can happen, but once you get that information, it always comes in past life, for me in my readings, past life with an actual, I want to say, more this life appropriate. So you can sort of say, oh my God, we have this past thing we came into life with together. And that kind of gets a lot off your shoulders because you're like, there's nothing I can do about it. I know this thing happened. Let me get rid of that edge, right? Because when our edges soften, so many more things are possible. And then, of course, there's just like the common thing of like, oh, crap, when I was his age, I went through this, and this. And seeing him at that age makes me uncomfortable. And that's, we and it doesn't have to be just your son, but I'm just saying, there's a million dynamics between people, like why certain people get along and other people don't. Why we think certain things are funny and other people don't. These are things about human dynamic that we have to deal with every day. And it always comes up in psychic readings of any kind. Yeah.
So I'm going to have Solange actually drop your links in the comments. I'm going to put them in the show notes. I know we have my 3, she's waiting in the background. So I don't want to leave her hanging out too much because I know James and I will just get lost in conversation and be like, well, why this? What about this? Is there any other final thing, James? I feel like he has something else burning that he wants to add.
No, I really this is just like plant medicine where I'm like imagining Heather coming out when I'm obsessing over how I look and being like, look, we're animals. We're not perfect. So I love that. And
James, you call me when I get obsessed with the way I look and we can talk about that. Because I'm still a human being, a mess, right?
But I love that you're science-based because I look a lot at the science of happiness as well. I believe science and spirituality can intertwine with one another. And I also love what you have to say about the wellness community, where, being well doesn't mean we have to be perfect. And that's kind of what the Roundtable is about. Like, come messy, come fucked up looking, come say the wrong thing. Like, everyone welcome. So thank you for feeling like we can all just spread our wings and be messy. I'm very appreciative of you, Heather.
Hey, thank you, James. I'm appreciative of you too. This has been such a fun moment. This is great.
Thank you, Heather. I'll see you soon.
Okay,
and we just stopped. Bye. We just stopped all of her links, you guys. She does these like really amazing daily reads that are like, her photos are like always eclectic and it like talks about what the energy is. And so make sure that you guys follow her on, I feel like Instagram is the thing that I see the most for her. So all of it is in the comments. So I'm going to bring in my 3, and I just wanted to show you that I wrote it down on a piece of paper because I was really afraid that I was going to forget how to phonetically say it. So I have my reminder.
You said it beautifully.
Welcome.
So I wanted you to talk about the things that you do, but I know that we connected because you were like, I'm a holistic psychotherapist, which I was like, ooh, very intrigued by that. And then you also do like past life regression types of therapies with people as well, among the many different things. Like as soon as I was reading that she's like basically liberating people from the patriarchy, I was like, yes, like we need to bring her in. Like I'm so about her. Introduce like just a little bit more about how you're connected to this past life topic.
Yes. Well, so I'm from India. So their past lives are just passé. It was just understood that we float in for a bit and then we float out for a bit and then we'll float back in for another bit, so that we're just on this eternal cycle. So it's very much part of how I think and how I approach healing in general, because everything is on the perspective and the basis of the soul. So our souls are here to learn, to grow, to experience, to evolve, and there's no experience that's better than another. And I think this echoes this previous conversation of perfection, that we think this is the ideal life, and this is where somebody sort of has it, and this is a life where somebody's learning. But no, the soul wants to experience both sides and all sides so that it can have these different experiences. And so, that speaks to the duality of reality, that, one life will be happy, but then the other life will know sadness. One life will be powerful, another life will know powerlessness. And so it's this exquisite dance through the life of a soul that we are continuously evolving and experiencing. And so with past lives, the way the soul operates is the soul focuses on particular aspects to learn through a set of lifetimes. So we Earth is a school. So we learn different things, and our learnings happen over a course of lifetime. So for example, if we want to learn power, or if we want to learn abundance, or if we want to learn love of a particular form, like maternal love, or sibling love, or romantic love, it takes lifetimes to learn this. So I think we need to really be easy on ourselves, that we can't have it all. We cannot have it all. It's impossible. We can't have it all in one lifetime. We can have a little bit here and then a little bit there, and then we won't have this there. So we keep flowing through, having different things and learning different things. And so, but most people come into past lives, one, to heal something. It could be physical, it could be a relationship, it could be emotional. And the other set of people come in wanting to know their soul purpose. Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? What are my gifts? And it's always been fascinating to me, because being a therapist, I've worked as a therapist, but once I started doing past life regressions, I felt like the ceiling of my office would just open up, and it would just be this portal, this magic portal, where, not just me, but this other person's soul, and of course, spirits and guides would be in the room, and there would be this palpable energy of what I will call magic, but it's really soul, this higher spiritual vibration that's coming in to not just inform the client, but to have the client experience their soul, so that they know how beautiful they are, so that they know how amazing and incredible and vast they are, and to connect with this quantum field, the spiritual field. And so it becomes this place, which your previous guest was talked about, where the client can experience different aspects of different lifetimes.
So, I know you want to ask, but before this, just because I know it's a kind of like how Heather was talking about, she's seeing it and providing it. Would you say that what you're doing is pulling it through in the same way, or is the client going into a certain state and pulling it through for themselves?
Yeah, I'm not doing a reading.
Yes,
because for me, the client needs to have the experience. And because in the experience, the transformation happens. Now, when the client experiences, let's say, a past life of poverty, or a past life of being a dancer, then she's tangibly, those energies reawaken in her, and it's an embodied, it's a mind, body, spirit knowing that she comes away with. And in that, the transformations happen. Sometimes, because of the mind, body, spirit connection, sometimes people will come in with a physical illness. Somebody will have a throat issue. They could be, so potentially they could have been strangled or beheaded. you know. And so when they go back to that lifetime, whatever that lifetime is, centuries ago, when they actually go through that experience, they're not actually experiencing the pain of being beheaded, but they see it like a movie. People experience past lives in different ways. They see it, they experience it as knowing, they experience it as a vision, or sometimes just an emotional feeling. But they know it, just as you and I know where we are today. It's very tangible. It's undoubtable. And so, you know, once they go through that feeling of beheadedness, the blocks can clear. And that's the difference between a reading and an actual regression. You know, so it's the blocks can clear, and something does open up in this lifetime.
God, the minute you started speaking, like it I don't know what it was. It gave me like almost a trance like feeling. But I did want to ask you about, there's a session in A Journey of Souls that really stood out to me, and I kind of want to ask you about this theory. I'm gonna kind of script the story a little bit in it, but in it, this guy's in his whatever that stage is, and it's this very arrogant, womanizing man, and he's in this state, and he makes contact with what is our soul, and the soul is relaying back that he's kind of given up on this body form, that there's such a disconnect, that the soul's almost waiting for this individual, the shell, to die. Do you remember that story, Ashley? And he's in contact with the soul, and the man is so in his mind, in his human mind, and is so all about like money and stature, and he's an alcoholic. He's full of booze. He's disconnected from his soul, and the soul is kind of waiting for the shell to die so it can transport into the next experience. And I was kind of wondering about your theory about people that are so disconnected from their soul that it's almost a zombie-like state. Because I kind of feel like I see a lot of people currently either awakening or going into like this kind of zombie existence. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have so many thoughts on that, and there's so many questions in there, and we could go in all kinds of different. But you know, we are always part of our soul. If we were truly disconnected from our soul, we wouldn't be alive. We couldn't be alive, because that is the light line that is connected to us. That's a lifeline, a soul line. And having said that, there are young souls, and there are souls going through a whole process of growth, all the way from youthful souls to older souls. And generally, the older you get, because you've lived multiple life experiences, there is a maturity. There's a soul maturity, just like emotional maturity, that develops. And so there's a different way of being and relating and engaging with life. So that maybe that answers the, but, you know, I don't know that specific situation, but it could be that, you know, sometimes there are lessons to be learned in each life. I don't know what that particular person was going through, but, you know, it might be that there's a completion of whatever that person needed to learn. And then it's like then ready to go to the next level or the next graduation, so to speak. And also, you know, there are, I mean, if you're talking about now specifically, I mean, that's a whole other theory that I could go into about where we are now in the world. And I don't know if this is the forum for that. But
oh yeah, it is.
Oh,
but we
it
don't
is.
have to do it now. But
okay,
yeah, I mean, whatever you're inspired to share, we're open to hearing it all.
I mean, there is this kind of polarization that's happening, right? And I remember when I was finishing my exams to become a psychotherapist, and my intuition started opening up. And I was just shown this vision of the earth splitting, like literally becoming two. And one was going in a different direction, and the other was separating. And that, you know, people were going to also separate. There was going to be the separation. And that part of my work was helping people move from this to that dimension. So I think what we're experiencing is part of that there is this, some people are ready to awaken and move on. And then there are others that they are where they are. There is no judgment, but that maybe there is a different plane of existence, another realm that they will be on, while Earth and Mother Earth, because she's shaking it off. She's gone to her next level. And so part of all of these upheavals is who's ready to get on that boat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Gosh, I love you.
So it's funny because James and I totally read something that was worded differently, but was very much what you described right now. And it's makes me remember this imagery that's always come in for me of being this bridge for people that helps. And so I've always known that there's so many different bridges and so many different kind of ways to maybe go through that experience that you're naming. And so it seems like you had a vision, and I hear it explained just in different words, but that same energy of sort of going from one place to another.
Yeah.
And I think that people set up sort of in between lives, sort of like who are going to be those teachers or those guides for them, so that when it's time for that to happen, it kind of feels like there's many of us that kind of agreed to come in for this role. So like for Heather, it was like reminding them, readings remind people of what they already know. It just gives them that confirmation so that they fucking trust it. And for you, it's when they need to like heal it and be in that frequency and vibration and experience it now in this body so that they can complete that cycle, or maybe have kind of the trust or the healing to sort of up level their frequency. Am I getting that right? I'm not as eloquent as you, but am I getting most of that right?
No, absolutely. And we're all of us are here undoubtedly with purpose. There's no mistake. There's no accident. That all of us are here on this planet at this time. Our souls chose to be here. And there's a powerful, not a story, but a information that's a call went out into the universe. Who are the souls who want to be here at this time? And as you said so rightly, a lot of teachers, a lot of guides, a lot of people who are wanting to support this ascension process are here. So that's us, so that's what you guys are doing, and that's what Heather is doing, and that's what I'm doing, and so many millions others are also doing. And every bit of it is important. Yes, absolutely. The reading of a soul, the actual regression of a soul. There's so many angles to environment, to transformation. So they're all important.
I just love, to full disclosure, we were stalking you on the internet a little bit before, and Ashley, I told you about your dirty mouth when she was going to be on. You had to go and cuss in front of her.
James said, I think she's too eloquent. He's like, she's very and we were like listening to these peaceful podcasts with her, like, hello, welcome today. And it had this peaceful music. And he's like, I am so about her. He's like, I don't know how she's going to feel about us saying the word fuck as we're discussing critics. And I'm like, we'll let her decide. Let's not make assumptions.
All joking aside, like your work is amazing. I love listening to your stories. Like honestly, like you have this transfixing quality about you. Like you definitely have just taught me a lot in this little segment. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to be with both of you.
Aww.
Thank you for having me. And all words, all vocabularies, all languages are welcome.
Thank you. Well, we're going to drop all your links in the comments right now so that people can connect with you and all the things that you do and offer. We'll put it in our show notes. And I really hope that you'll come regarding like liberating us from patriarchy or ascension, another topic that I just want to build an entire episode around, because I just want to hear more and more from you. And I'm sure everyone else does as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
I'd love to. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Be well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
You and your dirty mouth. We almost pulled it off. we were almost eloquent. You just have to be dirty. But
I felt like I just really wanted to, I don't know. Sometimes it's just fun to mix it up, and I'm not gonna. I literally had in my own like therapy session the other day that I was like, yeah, I just have made this choice now that I'm just gonna be me, and that I'm not gonna shape myself anymore, like to try to get certain reactions from people. I'm like, I just don't think I'm doing that anymore, and so this is a part of it of saying the word fuck and like calling out that I have to have post-it notes to remember how to say people's names correctly. It's all a part of that.
You know I'm fucking with you, right? Because you know,
Yes.
like even when I try to, like I'll be like giving like a beautiful skin, fucking fuck. It just comes out of me. So but wow, those two, like, you know, I feel like I already know Heather because, you know, I've listened to a lot of Heather, but wow, she just blew me. How do you say her name again? Because I'll fuck that up too.
Maitreyi.
Gosh, why can't we have beautiful names like that? But those two just really blew me away. What'd you think?
I loved experiencing like different aspects on the same topics, and because I do feel like it was just sort of like different windows or portals into seeing the same thing and to understand how we might experience it coming through in different ways. Because I know that I've shortly after, it's funny, like Heather did a reading where at the end I asked her about our past lives, and then I like played part of that back for you, and she was talking about how like we were romantically together in many lives, that like we were lesbians in other lives together, and it was like all these different things. And she's like, and sometimes you just come in and kind of have these quick like little sort of guest appearances. You always check in on each other in those lives. You guys have that sort of relationship. And so I remember shortly after that I was in kind of that state between sleep, like where you're not sure, kind of how Solange was describing. And I started to get these kind of full on glimpses because she sort of almost like plugged me into it. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it was almost like as if I could then access it and see it. And then, and I was having a lot of different dreams where I was like, oh, there was this conversation. I saw this event that happened. I know you want to say something dirty. Go ahead and say it. Go ahead.
So are you telling me you used all that beautiful information Heather gave you to have lesbian wet dreams about us? So that's what you took away from everything she gave you. You were having nasty dreams about you and I as a lesbian couple. I'm just embarrassed for you, quite frankly.
This is kind of us and our conversations. I feel like this is a window into our relationship and our friendship right now.
I'm trying to have a spiritual discussion, and she's having lesbian fantasies about with me.
And Solange is she always says that we always, before every episode ends, we have to go in some sort of like dirty detour. We're gonna just make it a fucking segment.
I kind of wanted to broach on something you and I were talking about last time we saw each other, to kind of like, I want to kind of talk about not this next upcoming show, but the show after that, and kind of like be open about the discussion you and I were having. How do you feel about that? Is that too much?
No, go for it.
So, you know, we have the Hallows Eve show coming up, which I'm super excited about. And then the following Friday will be 2 days after the election. And I personally have a lot of feels about it. I myself am going through some anxieties and some spiritual growth myself. And Ashley and I were really trying to talk about what we should be discussing 2 days after the election, because we really don't know which way it's gonna go at this point. And either way, I really believe we're gonna be in a different America. And trying to discuss if we should talk about, you know, I was throwing at things like blanket, like hope and rebuilding. And Ashley's like, well, we probably should get more specific than that. And I just wanted to talk about my general feelings about the coming weeks and how I hope that we all treat each other with respect and love. Because last night, you know, listening to my neighbors after the debate, it hurt my soul. It really did hurt my soul to hear that kind of talk and that kind of despairing remarks about other individuals, regardless of what political field you are on or thinking, it really hurt my soul. So I just want to be very open about that, the roundtable, I'd love to hear what you guys want to talk about 2 days after the election. Any thoughts on that, Ashley?
Well, I know that sometimes I struggle with it because it's kind of like, it's sort of like I have different interesting perspectives of how things are playing out. And it was sort of like, yes, it's sort of like 3D kind of wise, it's important. But then I was like, well, I'm kind of connected with that, like what's going on and how it's playing out, that there's kind of this undoing of systems and that it doesn't necessarily matter. And while I like know that is, it's sort of like not naming how I will vote, but it's hard sometimes for me to express that when I kind of have sort of one intuitive kind of spiritual kind of 5D view of something, and then me kind of here as Ashley and sort of making a choice. And I feel like sometimes it's hard for me to express that in correct terms, like to you, like even with us like being best friends, because it's just like, well, I support people, I support love. Like, I mean, I don't really, it's sort of like, I feel like politics in general is kind of like a sort of a thing to distract people from thinking about the deeper things. And so it's all kind of fucking like, I don't know, just sort of a strange thing. It's a strange thing for me to be connected to sort of what I see playing out here in the coming months and years, and then to know that's there. And it's like, it's hard for me to, I guess, like have both sometimes. And I don't know if anyone else ever feels that way of being connected with both. Does it mean that I'm like not going to vote? Like, no, like I'm going to vote, like sort of aligned with Ashley's values of the candidate that's supporting my gay friends, my transgender friends. Like I'm going to follow my values here as Ashley. Right. But it's sort of like, I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it other than that it's really hard to mesh sort of those two things together at times and to experience both ways.
Well, I actually absolutely get what you're talking about, because if you remember, like in our first podcast when we're talking about when they don't agree during the whole civil uprising, I for a long time felt that like, oh, I'm gonna stay away from that, and I'm above this, I'm on the spiritual realm, and you are really the person that awoke the activist in me. And so I do have that duality of like, I'm a free spirit and nothing's going to hold me down. And like a conversation with my sponsor was like, even in a dictatorship, I need to be a free spirit. Even if it goes that completely that way, I'm a free spirit. But at the same note, like I do need to remain true to my body experience, my earth experience as a gay man who believes in everyone having equal rights. So it is a very huge duality of being like, not part of this whole experience. Politics are absolutely a distraction. They're kind of ridiculous. And then also being the activist, it's like, fuck no, I'm going to fight for women's rights. I'm going to fight for, equality. I'm going to fight for all that. So I totally get that. I just wanted to be open about like an interesting conversation and see if anyone had any great ideas of how to kind of meld that 2 days after the election, because it is a time of interesting energy, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So were we talking about, well, I think we decided to leave it open-ended just to kind of see. I think that what our choice was is that we don't know exactly what that November 6th conversation is going to be, because what felt right is for us to just kind of feel into it and then to decide what wanted to be brought through, what felt right at that given time. Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like it's hard for me to even like share that and be that honest that I feel both ways, because my assumption is that not everyone listening will understand and be connected with the same kind of way that I see humanity going. And that, but I also like am sharing what's true, because I know that there's probably other people that feel conflicted because they are connected with both. Right. So I'm just going to share it because fuck, like what else am I going to share other than my truth?
Well, that's why I brought it up, because I do think a lot of people are feeling what both of us are feeling. Me feeling like I do need to be grounded right now and be an activist, and you feeling like more like, oh, this is kind of fucking ridiculous, and I'm, and that pool in between. So I think it is something for people that are spiritually inclined. A lot of them are really feeling that. And I think it is a topic that we should, talk about, like feeling like I'm not part of this earth bullshit, but fuck, this change and awakening is unpredictable and it's just ever shifting right now. So that's all on that. Just want to have a little tangent about that.
I pulled this card before we started, and we actually started to talk about the earth, and so I feel like we should just read this to end
Is that a new
things
deck?
off. No, this is the shaman deck, the mystical shaman deck. Okay, so it says the essence, earth represents the gift of life. The symbol on this card refers to the body of the planet Earth, the human body, and nature herself. We're reminded by this symbol that all creatures are born of the earth and human beings are the stewards of life on this planet. It refers to what we make it, It refers to what we make of it, our health, wealth, security, grounding, solidity, and stability. It reminds us that the world of form is a gift from spirit and needs to be treated with respect. The invitation, when Earth symbol appears, it represents a need to focus on reverence and appreciation for the natural gifts that are coming to you now and always. The concrete world you inhabit is there by grace of spirit, and you are part of it. Much can be accomplished now when you focus on compassionate, reverent service to the world. If you act with integrity, gratitude, and humility, you will find yourself more prosperous than you can imagine. Success is assured when the Earth card appears as an invitation.
That's a perfect way to end this one, my friend.
Well, thanks everybody for being here. We are doing our All Hallows Eve it's a podcast party. We decided it's called. So it's the day before Halloween, so Friday the 30th, a week from today. And we said that traditionally, like when you researched it, because that's your role as the researcher, that's your role, is that people do like readings for each other, and the veil is thinner between kind of form and spirit that day. And so I'll be doing some readings, which usually I don't do in this format. This will be the first. And then we're connecting with a medium. I think Susan Grau is like, I'm trying to lock her in because she's fucking amazing and she's done a few different mediumship readings. And so we're bringing in a medium because we're wanting to give you guys like an interactive experience on that day, because it's a fucking celebration. So why not? So it's going to be very different next week. Anything else, my dear?
Just throw up that last comment. That made my heart smile.
This one?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everyone listening. And again, I hope this can be a conversation where anyone else has ideas. Please find us on Spotify. Please join our Facebook group, not necessarily about the numbers, so we can engage in conversations that like you feel like you can't have with, other people. That's primarily the purpose of us creating this little podcast, is we want to have those conversations that everyone else finds too freaky deaky. And you can say fuck, and you can smoke weed when you're doing it, or whatever you want. But that's the whole purpose of it. So thank you for everyone, and much love.
Bye, everybody. Have a good weekend.